Thank you very much. Moderator of choice, I know you are at the coast doing some wonderful job for the HR fraternity. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for the music. And of course, it is getting it live by getting it right by Atara Solutions, a HR consultants firm that brings you hot cakes every Tuesday from 8 to 9:30, so that your business, so that your career, so that your brand stands out from the crowd. Tonight, we have something special, something that makes your organization become solid and firm. I'll introduce the guests, but before we introduce our wonderful guest who has been in this game of governance for a long time. I'm not saying her age though. I am saying she has been in the game of auditing for a long time, and she's going to give us serious stuff. I hope you have got your notebooks, you've got your paper, you've got your tea, your coffee, and you are going to enjoy. Grace, tell us who are making this particular program tonight possible.
Thank you, Super MC Richard Magoma, Mr. Positive Flavors. It's always a pleasure partnering with you on these programs and other things to grow ourselves and personal development. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grace Nzula, and I am a HR consultant and trainer with Atara Solutions, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight and looking forward to really this conversation about governance structures, because I know a lot of business owners and HR professionals or other professionals who are looking to be part of the decision-making table. And therefore, that's why we're having this conversation. But you're tuned in to Get It Right with Atara Solutions, which is a webinar series that seeks to demystify issues in employment and entrepreneurship. We do this every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course, we have our sign language interpreter, Madam Catherine Sidandi, who supports us in making us inclusive. And we do this in partnership with a number of organizations. We have Pathway Solution Services. Pathway Solution Services is a HR consulting company. They have a lot of trainings on their LMS. LMS is Learning Management System. And you can actually log in and get to learn on by yourself, and you get to have a certificate at the end. And they're giving audience from Atara Solutions very good discounts, and you will get to enjoy, including some amazing courses that are logged in onto their LMS. We have Nile Front. Nile Front is a hotel. Nile Front cottages are located in Jinja, Kampala, Uganda. In Jinja, we have where the River Nile meets Lake Victoria, and that's Nile Front Cottages. It's a very magical place. It's one of the most beautiful places I have been to. And then we have Elsamere. Elsamere is a hotel or a lodge located in Naivasha. If you're looking to take a vacation, solocation, vacation, whatever vacation you want to take, please go to Elsamere in Naivasha. It's such a serene and beautiful place. You will enjoy. They have a museum, so you can go around. They have a number of animals. You can actually go and learn. And if you just want to chill, you can go there and just chill out. And then we have Labor Planet. Labor Planet outsource manpower. Their business into manpower is manpower outsourcing. So if you're looking to outsource your casuals or your general workers, then Labor Planet will be able to support you on that. We have Steadfast Quality Solutions. Steadfast Quality Solutions is a HR consulting and PR consulting company located in Kampala, Uganda. They are actually in the business of supporting boards for boards training in Kampala and board evaluation. Please get in touch with my good friend Herbert Zake, who is a partner with us, located in Kampala. And then we have K-Square HR Services. K-Square HR Services is a HR consulting firm located in Rwanda, in Kigali, Rwanda. If you're looking for HR support in Kigali, please get in touch with K-Square HR Services. Then we have Essence Park, we have Kapula Mintito, we have Panessa Training Institute, we have Wicklin, we have Profiles International, and we are welcoming you to Festac Africa Festival. This is a festival that is celebrating Africa in Kisumu in August. This is, if you ever have felt any way patriotic, then Festac is a place that you want to go and just get to appreciate being African and just being part of a community of like-minded people and just figure out how we can solve our own issues as Africans generally. And of course, we have Richard's favorite time of the year, the men's conversation that's coming up on the 22nd of June. If you're a man and you want to have this, you want to come and discover your authenticity, you want to come and interact with other men and get to learn. We keep saying that men are leaders, men are supposed to be leaders. Us ladies, we expect leadership at home. But are they natural? They're supposed to be natural born leaders. We all know that leadership, you have to develop your skills to become better. And that is part of why we're having this conversation. So we're going to have awesome speakers of the day. We're going to be looking at a business angle. We're going to be looking at how to balance your career. We are also going to be looking at mental health. And we're also going to be looking at generally health. We have a urologist coming in to speak as well. So this is going to be wisdom packed. It's going to be an amazing time, and the men are going to have fun. So please book your slot. It's only 4,000 shillings, and it's going to be happening on the 22nd of June at Absa Sports Ground on Thika Road near KCA. If you want to partner with us, please get in touch with us as well, and we'll be able to share with you the packages to become our partner. So we're looking forward to having this event, which is going to be the event of the year, with the men coming together and just sharing and learning from one another and just becoming better versions of themselves. So please do not miss out on this event. All right, I think that will be it from me. Richard, back to you.
Thank you very much, moderator of choice. Now you can go and have a bite. And since you have mentioned Kaplan Mentito, please, if you do not bring cashew nuts, make sure you stay in Mombasa. Catherine, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Very well. You are enjoying the moment with HR people. Thank you so much for the wonderful work you're doing in making sure that everybody is becoming powerful by gaining knowledge.
Thank
Ladies
you,
and gentlemen, I am Richard J. Magoma. I am a HR professional, and I go by the name Monica MC Positive Flavors. I am your host tonight, and we are going to ask ourselves what makes organizations strong. Why does that organization become strong, and why does the other organization become weak? How do you know this? You bring experienced people who know the nuts and bolts of organizational management, people who know how to look at the things you are doing. They assess, they audit. And that is why tonight we have Dorothy Chepkoech, CPA K. Then we have another title, Certified Internal Auditor, Certified Risk Management Assurance. Those are titles like ours, CHRP. She has an experience, a whopping 17 years in the finance sector. She's an experienced board member of state corporations and professional institutions and corporations. Currently, she's the managing partner of Dorothy and Associates. It is a consultants firm that specializes in governance. They also do risk management. They also check the controls. They check what you are doing is what you are saying you are doing. They check the systems, the processes, the leadership, the law, to make sure that your organization is getting it right every other time. She's currently the chair and founder of Gender Platform. It is an NGO that is concerned with transformation using education. Her education includes finance, that is BCom from the university, Kenyatta University, Master of Business Administration from the University of Nairobi. She has other certifications which I have mentioned. Her passions include business advisory, capacity building, and many other things that she's going to fill you in. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dorothy Chepkoech by using the best emojis so that she can be inspired. If you do not send the emojis that are good, she's going to audit them and say, these emojis are not appropriate. Take it away, Dorothy Chepkoech. Karibu sana. Yes, I can see people are very fast. Technology, they're not asking, have you seen mine? Have you seen mine? I can see love, I can see celebration. Thank you so much. Welcome, Dorothy. Tell us about how we should establish governance structures so that our organizations can withstand VUCA. Welcome.
Thank you, Richard. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
You can't see me?
Yes.
And now?
Not yet.
Okay, that's interesting.
I can see Catherine. I can see Catherine. I can see myself, but I can't see you.
I can see myself. Catherine can see me, Richard.
Oh, okay. You can go on. You can go on. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Richard, for the good introduction and for the welcome that I've received from the emojis that have gone up. Thank you so much. I think I have like 1 hour to take you through the presentation. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And people are appreciating you so well. Yeah.
Take it away. Thank you. So my name, as has been said, is CPA Dorothy Chepkoech with all those other qualifications and education. But what I'm coming to you with today is the experience and the exposure I have in governance and how we can use it or the knowledge of it to help our organizations to, survive the tide. So just before we continue, we had a poll just to establish the kind of audience that we're dealing with. And there's a poll. I don't know if you can launch it. There are 2 polls. The first one is to establish what kind of an organization you are in, whether you're running your own organization or you're employed. What kind of an organization is it? And then the second poll is to establish whether you have a governance structure in your organization. So Richard, would you please run the polls? Richard, you're muted.
There is a demand that they want to see you. They cannot be able to see you, just like me, I can't see you.
Oh.
But I can see her.
So let me, who else cannot see me?
Awings can't see you. Lynette can't see you. Yes.
Okay, should I go out and come back in again?
Yeah. All of us can. No one can see you. I think it's only Catherine who is able to see you.
Okay, just a moment then. So, Richard, please confirm that you can see me now.
Me, I can't see you. I can only see Catherine.
Richard.
Yes.
We can see, myself, I can also see her.
Okay. I don't know then what is the problem. Lynette can't see you.
Perhaps I can just proceed then.
Yes, just proceed because of time.
All right. So
I think it is because Catherine has been pinned.
Oh.
Yes, it is because Catherine has been pinned. That is why.
could Jacinta pin me therefore, or pin both of us?
Jacinta, pin Dorothy, please.
Okay. As we do that, could you also run the poll?
Yeah.
Then, are you able to see me now, Richard?
We can be able to see you very clearly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. So as you run the poll, I could just now share my screen so that we start with the presentation.
Please go ahead.
Jacinta, I can't share my screen. It's disabled. Could you make me a host or a co-host?
There you are, Dorothy. You are now a co-host.
Okay. So, Richard, please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, I can be able to see it.
Thank you. So as we run the poll, as I had suggested, we just wanted to establish what kind of an organization you are in or what kind of a business you're running, how it's registered, and then the second poll was to determine whether you have any governance structures in your organization. So from the polls that we get or from the results, we can be able to tailor-make what we discussed to that poll. So this is a topic that is dear to me. It's a topic that I'm passionate about. And also being an internal auditor, these governance structures or these governance activities that are done, it is the internal audit function that usually gives assurance both to top management and the board that now those governance activities are actually being implemented correctly so that your organization is able to continue with the activities that it has set for itself, the strategies, the objectives. So internal audit comes to give you assurance that what the board or the governing body has set up as the structures or as the processes or as the strategy are actually being achieved. So the two roles are intertwined, and usually internal audit is the eyes of the board in management. So it's the one that looks for you to give you assurance, and that's why internal auditing is the only function in management that reports directly to the board through the audit committee. So as I take you through this presentation, which is going to last for about an hour, the concept that I would like for us to get is that management manages, but the board is the one that is a governing body in that it oversights. It checks to see that what is being established or what is being done is actually being done as it should. And the reason why we need the board or the governing body, which is the basis of this discussion, is that we have different people with different relationships in the organization, and there has to be someone who is sort of independent to be able to give also, to be like a referee to say the things that we promise the shareholders or the people who invest in the business are actually being worked on to be able to give them value. And in the case of the public service, that the shareholder is Wanjiko, that the taxpayers' money, the governance structures make sure that the taxpayers' money is actually used to deliver the goods and services for the public sector. For the profit making, it's, saying that we are making sure these people are investing your money, putting in place measures and practices to ensure that you get value for the investment that you're making. So in short, that is the role of the governing body. And so the decision of who sits in your board, the decision of who advises you on what best strategy to take, the decision of what kind of qualification should these people have, the decision of what kind of experience, what kind of exposure, those are the decisions that shareholders will make and therefore say these are the people that will represent us, and continuously get updates from management and reports to tell them that we are actually doing these things the way that we should. So in a nutshell, that is what a governance structure is. Now, before I take you to the presentations, let us also come to the understanding that if you're a listed company, that is you're in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, it means there's a code of behavior or code of governance that is expected of you, that is set by the Act or the CMA Act, that says if you're listed, because you're dealing with the public, these are the rules by which you should abide. So it's usually set on, you either comply or explain why you're not complying. That is a good thing in that it makes listed companies it's like you're unashurutishwa, like you're being forced to behave in a particular way. So there's a beauty to that, because then there are clear guidelines on what you're supposed to show to the public or report to your stakeholders. There's a clear guideline on how you're supposed to do your books. There's a clear guideline on who should sit in your board. It determines everything. But on this other side of the divide, when you're not a listed company, when you're a startup, when you're a business, a sole proprietorship, there are no, there are no specific laws or guidelines or mishurutisho that make you, tell your shareholders or the stakeholders that this is what we're doing. There's nobody forcing you. And therefore, these are the people or these kinds of businesses, the MSME world, the startups, the entrepreneurs, these are the people that I feel would need a lot of guidance or support in therefore establishing the governance structures for themselves. And because also as they grow, I believe the ambition of an entrepreneur is to grow to one day to a big corporate. So as you maneuver that life cycle of your business past the 5 years that most of startups usually get to, then you would want to know, and the best place to learn from therefore are these established codes of governance. So how can you tailor them to your organization, to the size of your organization, to the nature of your business, to the complexity of what you're selling, to your entrepreneurship? That is the point that we're discussing today. How do we bring these codes of, governance, these structures that are for the mainstream listed companies or even public sector, which has very elaborate governance structures? How do we bring them now down to the entrepreneur, to the startup, the person who's saying, I want to run my, I'm selling shoes, or how do I bring governance to that level? And the best way is to benchmark and to simplify it to your organization. So that is one key concept again of this discussion for tonight. And the other key concept is, because we want continuity in the governance structures, because we want people who can help organizations and small firms and MSMEs to help them to actually pass that 5-year death sentence. Because you realize if businesses and MSMEs grow into strong corporate organizations, that means the economy will grow. That means we'll create job opportunities. And if you read around, you realize most MSMEs actually employ the highest percentages of youth. So by establishing good governance structures that ensure business continuity for these MSMEs, for these startups, it means we are actually protecting our future. We're making sure our posterity is taken care of. We're making sure that this youth will continue to have jobs and they will grow with the organization. And so this is the soul of the discussion that we're having today, that we also need to build board memberships or governance personnel from this youth, so that even as we go past generations, we are able to build, to mentor, and create the future of board members who will be able to take the organization to that level. And remember, times are changing, becoming digital. So you'll be dealing with Generation Z in the boardroom. So how are we going to make sure that we create a pipeline of governance structures and governance people that will take our organization to the next level? So that's the summary of my discussion.
Are you moving your screen? Are you moving your slides?
Not yet. I was just building the concept first.
Okay. That was
so
a
that
concern.
I'll go to the slides, but I just wanted to, so that we are together. In case you follow at any point of the presentation, those are the concepts that we are discussing today. So how do we establish them? How do we borrow from governance codes that are there? How do we customize them for small organizations? And how do we build posterity by creating a pipeline of governance people? So then I'll go ahead. Richard, do we have the poll results?
Jacinta, kindly share the poll results.
Okay.
There you go.
What type of an organization are you in or are you running? Let it go for 1 more minute. That is So the majority so far is limited company. Richard, right?
Yes, so far so good. Limited companies score highly.
Okay, so we can take that note that the limited company is more, followed by public sector. Okay. Then not
Yeah.
for profit. Yeah, okay. That helps. We can move to the next one, Jacinta. Jacinta, you can move to the next poll.
She has. Do you have established governance structure body in your organization? Yes, it scores the highest, 69, and then no scores 31%.
Okay, so we're in safe hands. So most of the organizations are limited, and most of us have governance structures in place. So that's a good place to start from. So we can progress. So my profile is there, as has been discussed by Richard. Then we'll go straight to how I plan to do my presentation. And this is the agenda. So I'll go through the introduction, what is corporate governance, then we'll go through the various codes of corporate governance that are there. We'll discuss the elements and principles of governance. Why do we need governance, the role of internal audit, and then how you set up your governance structures. While doing my presentation, I actually figured more that we'll be dealing with most MSMEs, but it's the same if you want to move to improvement or continuous improvement of your governance structures. Then it is also true that most of or some of the MSMEs are registered as limited companies. So then we'll look at the challenges and possible solutions. Okay. So when we talk about management, we're talking about how you run your business. But when you talk about governance, it is, as I'd said, making or seeing to it or oversighting or seeing to it that it is done properly. So when you look at this quote by Trika, the governing body oversees management as it runs business. So if you're a sole proprietor, if you're a partnership, as you say, your board or your governing body tries, or the business of the governing body is to oversee or to make sure that you're actually running that business properly. If it's the public sector, it's the boards or the oversight authorities that make sure that we are implementing the policies of the government as they should. And that's why we have audit committees and we have other boards. Okay. So from all the definitions of governance that are there, if you are to go online today, most of them you will hear them talk about, the structures that are put in place by the governing body or the board to ensure that an organization is directed and run correctly. So you'll hear about regulations, you'll hear about systems, you'll hear about processes, you'll hear about rules, you'll hear about codes of conduct, and all these are just supposed to guide or to give a blueprint on how an organization should behave or run its businesses to be able to attain the objectives of the strategies that have been put in place. Okay, so I will call this a governance triangle. I know there is usually a four triangle, but the governance triangle and the need for governance is created by that three-level relationship. So you have the shareholders. These are the people who invest in the company. They put their money there and they hope for a good return. Then we have management. These are the people that are hired, okay, to be able to deliver on that. And then we have the board of directors who now act as the in-between or the referees. So the shareholders expect reports from the board of directors, and they also require management to manage the capital that has been invested in them correctly or efficiently so that they get a good return, while the shareholders provide that capital for management to invest. So then the board of directors talks or relates to management in continuously monitoring to see that this is being done correctly. It also gives them guidance and supervision to be able to continuously say they're doing it the way it should be done. So think of the board of directors or your governing body as your referee, and think of the shareholders as the people who invested in that match, and think of management as the people who are playing in that field. And the goal is to score and to make sure that we have met all our strategic objectives. Okay, so that triangle gives you a picture of, a governance ecosystem. When you look at the picture on your screen, what are you seeing? Because you say there's a board, which is the governing body. There's a society where the business operates in. There are stakeholders and regulators, people who want to know that you're doing things as per the law. Then there's a government that gives out the laws and regulations. Then there's culture that can be brought into your organizations. Then we have the resources, both hard and soft. So just tell me, what do you see on this governance ecosystem? And what comes to mind when you see, the various players and the interconnection of the webs? What do you see? Just go to the chat section and tell me what you see on the picture. Okay, tell me what you see. Someone is saying they can't see anything, or that the slide is moving. It's not moving. Is it moving now? What do you see on the? What do you see on the? Richard, what can you see?
Animals, several animals, cheetah, gazelle, dinosaur, I think.
So I can see in the chat someone is saying they're seeing an interdependence, they're seeing teamwork, they're seeing trees, they're seeing animal farm. And that is actually the picture that when you think of a governance ecosystem, it should come to mind. Why? Because some people are the grass, some people are the animals that eat the grass, and then there are some people who can actually eat the animals that eat the grass. So, and there must be perfect balance. Otherwise, if the grass dries up, then you're not able to attain any of the people at the top there who eat the animals who eat the grass will not have food. So an ecosystem of governance means that all these players must actually play together to be able to attain the objectives of the organization. Which are the hands that have been raised? Do we want to take their comments now? Okay, we are seeing independence, we are seeing collective existence. The hands that are raised, Richard.
I can see interdependence. I can see symbiotic relationship. I can see teamwork. I can see crisscrossing arrows. I can see trees, animal farm, a resemblance of food web, diversity, there's culture, there is interdependence in the ecosystem, network of animals, relations, see interdependence in the ecosystem, collective existence by Alois Ntuma.
Thank you. So in my introduction, I said that the need for governance is because we have several different relationships in the organization. So this governance ecosystem is a depiction of those relationships. And governance is the practice or the things that we do here to make sure everybody is happy in this ecosystem, to make sure water is not depleted, to make sure the lions are not too many, to make sure grass doesn't dry out. And that's why we must put in place procedures, processes, and people to make sure that this is being done correctly. And that's the governance ecosystem. Okay, so to do this, we say that we set in place procedures, processes, and to determine how we run the organization. So people who've been there for a while have set such codes of corporate governance, which make it simpler for you to know what you should comply with. So some of the ones I have come across in my journey in governance are the ones that are on the screen, the OECD principles, which are international. Then we have the Sabonis-Oxley in the US. Then we have the King 4 report on corporate governance in South Africa. Then we have the UK one, corporate governance code. These are available online, and you can always read and refer and make, adapt them to your organization. Then we have a very good one, this one of SME Governance Guidebook by IFC. Then we have state corporations, the Mongozo, of course, and the other governance guidelines for the public sector. So these are the codes. These are like the Bible to guide you on how to govern organizations. It will tell you all the way from board composition, what kind of committees to have, the membership of those committees, the qualifications, how to run meetings and the like. Okay. Then when you read the codes or when you go through those codes of governance, there are consistent terms that you will keep seeing. And this form the principles of governance. They are the things that you will come across as you try to establish correct governance structures. So one of them is accountability and transparency. Okay. That is one key element. Then we have responsive, inclusive, and equality, because you're dealing with shareholders. They need to be dealt with, in a form of where there is equity. Then we have effectiveness and efficiency. And this effective and efficiency is how we use resources. Just a moment. Sorry about that. So we have effectiveness. Yeah, it's their time right now. So effective use of effectiveness about meeting objectives, and efficiency is about how we use resources to meet them. Then we have bound by rules. You run your organizations and businesses by certain rules. Then there's need for, especially in public sector, there's need for public participation, and then there's agreement of stakeholders, which is a key requirement. So when you go through these codes of corporate governance, then you will see that these are the common principle or common discussions that are actually discussed in these principles. And so when you're setting up corporate governance structures, these are the considerations that you actually make. Okay, that you're accountable and transparent in the way you report to your stakeholders, you're responsive and you're inclusive. You obey the two-thirds rule. You're making sure that you're running the organization effectively to meet the goals, efficiently to make sure we're using resources well. Then you have rules and regulations and so forth and so on. So then, what are these elements and principles or pillars of corporate governance? What must be included in your corporate governance structures to demonstrate that you're actually doing it the right way? Because corporate governance can be just corporate governance, but good corporate governance obeys some sort of laws, has some key elements, and so for the elements, you need to ensure that you have a board of directors. That means it's sitting apart from management and sitting apart from the shareholders. Then you need to have a control environment which designs, how are you doing your risk assessments, what is your system of internal control. Then you need to consider transparency and disclosure, depending on the type of stakeholders you have and depending on the type of business you run. There are those that are required by law, but for the people you deal with, you need to customize. Then we have accountability, ethics and integrity, shareholder rights, risk management. Those are the elements that will push you to make sure that you have the proper governance structures in place. Then the principles, you will keep hearing them continuously in this discussion. Accountability, again, you will see it in the elements, is fairness, because you're dealing with different types of stakeholders. Then this transparency, independence, and this is why you need your governing body to be independent, in that they're not participating in the day-to-day running, but they're able to give you an oversight or an independent view of it. Then we have responsibility, we have leadership, efficiency, and effectiveness, which you've seen on the other side. Then there are the 4 pillars of governance, what will keep it in place: accountability, fairness, transparency, and responsibility. As you can see, they're interrelated. So when you have these things working in place, then your governance structures will actually remain and continue to support your businesses over time. Then this is just an elaboration of the 4 pillars. Accountability is ensuring that your actions and decisions are accountable to whoever you need to be accountable to. Could be your shareholders, could be the people invested in you, could be the public, could be the, Wanjiko. Then you have transparency, making sure that the information you give about your company is accurate and timely, and so that people don't wonder what it is you do by looking at your output. Then responsibility, ensure that you're complying with all rules and regulations, you're taking care of the society, you're able to be sustainable. Then there's the fairness, making sure that everybody that is concerned is being treated as they should. So why do we need corporate governance? can't we just run our business the way we feel like? Can't we just run organizations the way we feel like? Why do we need someone to oversight? Okay, and these are the reasons that I would say are key to us making sure or needing that corporate governance structure. So for the public sector, it is important because Mwananchi invests taxes in us. So we need corporate governance to help us, to tell us, or to guide us, or to tell us where we're doing it wrong. For private organizations where profit is our goal, we need a board that continuously tells us whether we are doing the right thing. Then for startups and organizations, we need guidance as we try to set up our structures as we grow. It ensures accountability and transparency. Again, you'll keep hearing the principles, the elements in the reasons for the importance of corporate governance. Then it also protects the interests of shareholders. It helps us in identifying our risks and managing them. It helps us in promoting ethical behavior. It helps in decision making, and it improves financial performance, because you know that whatever you're doing is actually going to be exposed out there. So you are going to try and make sure, because there's a referee, that you're actually doing things as they're supposed to be doing. That is the importance of having a corporate governance structure in place. And the roles of this governing body, or the roles of the board, or the responsibilities, can range from all the way from judicial, legal, industrial compliance, corporate reputation management, shareholder guardianship, CSR, or what we are going to now to think of as ESG, then leadership and employee engagement, business competency, customer stakeholder and fulfillment. And the reason we do this is because even as we get a composition of the board, we need people who have that industry experience to be able to help us, to check and to confirm, or to keep improving us, or telling us how well we can do this. So we should have a legal, someone who has legal expertise. You need someone who's a financial expert. You need someone who can actually give you HR expertise in your board. And the reason is because every buck of the organization stops with the board. So you want your board to be a person who actually has that expertise to give you that. So these are the roles of the governing body. Okay. So as you consider getting yourself a board, or as you consider the board composition in your organization, so for MSMEs or people who are starting up, or you want to consider, if the business is family owned, you want to make sure that there's a representation of those owners in that board. You want to make sure that they are independent directors. So it's not mandatory. If you're not listed, you would want an independent director who is not an owner or who is not an investor. So this person will give you, valuable external perspective. Then if you are too young, or if your business is too young, you might start with having an advisory board that is sort of flexible, that can give you mentorship. Then you need to consider succession planning. So how long should the board tenure be? And after that, who will you take on next? What kind of growth are you looking at? What is your business cycle like? Then you want to consider someone who is committed, because most of the time board work is mostly voluntary. And so you want someone who is committed and has independence of thought, so that you're able to get value from them. Then you need to consider diversity. You need to include gender, look at age. Depending on your business, you want to make sure that the representation in your board actually takes care. For example, if you're doing a business that is dealing with selling of clothes for young people, then you want someone in your board that will tell you what is the market like, what are they going for, what are the designs. Okay, consider ethnicity, and also consider professional background, depending on the objectives of the organization. And you also want financial expertise, because whatever we do ends up at numbers, and also industry expertise. Then they should also be aligned to your to the long-term vision of your organization. Okay. Then perhaps there's a thought that at C-suite you can now grow to the board level. So at C-suite is the top management, and some boards actually have executive directors. So at this level, the considerations you're having for a person who can sit in your board, in your C-suite, there should be a team builder. There should be people who can make decisions. They should have leadership skills. They should know that the work they do is about policy making that actually makes big decisions or make big moves for organizations. There should be people who can actually resolve conflicts. They should be able to actually manage as well. Okay. So in some instances where I've sat in a board and it's an audit committee, and in that board I had someone who, in that committee I had someone who is an architect, as opposed to the feeling that all audit committees should have finance people. So when you have that different perspective from someone like an architect in a financial environment, then they give you a completely different scenario. So sometimes you can develop a bias by continuously looking at things in a particular way. So you need that diversity and the ability to get someone who is totally different to give you a perspective that is raw and not does not have the bias of familiarity. Okay, so you might want to consider what does that mean for your governing structure. So for board membership, you want to have the right education and professional development, okay, so that you have the right foundational knowledge. You want that in your board because the person should have, if it's an audit committee, for example, you want the person to be able to understand what are the auditing standards, not the entire board, of course, but at least that you have that professional development. So if you consider yourself, you want to grow to that level as well, then you would want to make sure you are growing the right professional development. Then consider diverse and challenging experience, okay? Leadership skills, including communication, decision-making, adaptability, okay? Emotional intelligence, because sometimes in the board, the activities can take a turn and you want to be able to still steer the governing body to achieve the organizational objectives. Then building a strong teamwork, a network, then should have at least demonstrated governance experience, and you can build this through volunteerism, attending governance training, then positioning strategically if you're a person who wants to go to this position, or if you are an organization that is seeking a board person, then you want to see whether these people are actually positioned strategically. What kind of goals have they been achieving? What kind of activities have they been doing? Have they been building themselves up to that position? Then they should be people who are continuously staying informed and adaptable. Okay. So being an internal auditor, we usually revert back to the Bible, and this is the Bible when it comes to governance for internal auditors. So we have it's called the IIA's governance model. It's called the 3 lines model. So here it shows you, it places the discussion we're having today is about the governing body. So the governing body is a board which is accountable to stakeholders and gives you organizational oversight. So if you are looking for a model of how to set or how to run governance in the organization, then this is the best place to start, or this is the best model to work with. So at the top there, we have the board. Then we have management, which gives you the first line and second line roles. So management, there's the front line people who actually do the work. Then the second line people, where we have people like HR, compliance, risk management, and they oversight what the first line people are doing. Then we have internal audit that gives independent assurance to the board. And so if you look at the lines, you would see the description there. The lines facing up is the accountability and reporting lines. Then the arrows facing down is the delegation, direction, resources, and oversight. Then the lines across is alignment, communication, coordination, and collaboration. Remember, the internal audit function can be outsourced or it can be within the organization. So it's independent, as you can see, so that it is able to give oversight and it is able to give the governing body the true picture of what is going on. And of course, we have external assurance providers, which includes external auditors, who come once in a while or once in a year to give you an opinion of how you're running your financial, how your numbers are being reported. Okay, so this is a model you can adopt. It tells you who sits where, who are this governing body, what do they do. Then it tells you what management, where management falls, and the role of internal audit. This is just a discussion of what we've just said. So first line of defense, it used to be called defense before. So we have the operational management and the internal controls. Remember, the board sets these things up and then it gives them to management to implement. So at first line, if you're a bank, you're the front office teller who is operating. Then at this point, the controls are operational in nature. Then we have a second line, which are the control activities where we have quality, risk management, compliance, and this carry out a form of ongoing review to see that whatever is being done on the front line is continuously being monitored to be compliant with controls, or that the controls are actually okay. And then it reports on exceptions. Then the third line comes to give you assurance on the entire process. Okay. So Just to go a little bit into the role of internal auditing, remember we said in your governance structure, in an elaborate organization where we have a full board with committees, very mature organizations, then you would have an audit committee. And this is a body or the arm that is entrusted with giving you assurance on governance, risk management, and control compliance continuously. And you do this through an audit committee. So the board sets the strategy and says this is what we are going to do. Then it evaluates and adjusts the strategy continuously at the pace of risk. So remember, at this point, you have people reporting to the board at various levels, telling them, these are the risks we said we will be facing, this is what we are doing about it. So, and this comes to the board through the board and audit and risk committee. So at this level, we give oversight of and review of the strategy. How are we progressing? What are the risks? Then we have risk governance and oversight. They set the tone, the culture, as we always hear the tone at the top. Then at the board level, we also give oversight or guide development and implementation of an enterprise risk management framework where it's at that level is required. Then we receive and review reports on and communication on what management is doing about it. So at the board level, this is what we do. And remember, we do this through the internal audit function that continuously reviews what management is doing. Okay. So this is the purpose of internal auditing, and we cannot talk about governance without continuously pointing out the important role that internal auditing does. And this is because the internal auditor is continuously with the organization. So it strengthens the organization's ability to create, protect, and sustain value. And it does this by continuously giving independent, risk-based, and objective assurance, advice, insight, and foresight. And as we continue also in our profession, there's a focus now on actually giving more foresight as opposed to giving hindsight. So that is the role of internal auditing, and it cannot be overemphasized to strengthen your governance structures by giving you continuous assurance, by giving you a view of what is being done in management. So then, in summary, the role of the board audit and risk committee, where your organization has established a board structure, it oversights risk management and internal control, oversights financial reporting, oversights internal audit to make sure it is strong enough to be able to give you the right feedback. Then also it oversights regulatory compliance, ethical matters, and maintaining and measuring effectiveness, and then communication and reporting. Okay, so how do you then set up a governance structure, okay, or framework? And you just, from the discussions we've been having, this is a build up to this level. So when you're thinking about a governance framework, you're thinking about governance itself, you're thinking about your stakeholders, you're thinking about integrity and transparency, you're thinking about accountability, you're thinking about strategy. So what are the considerations that you must put in place? And I've already continuously reiterated, you must consider the relationships that are there. You must consider how you're going to structure this governance so that it is working effectively. Then you must put in place proper incentives, both for the board and for the management, to make sure that you're getting what you actually expect from them. So what can trigger you to actually say we need to either improve our governance structure or we need to change how we are doing our governance? So the first one is the organizational life cycle and the changes that come with it. What level are you in? Are you trying to take on new products, new investments? What changes are in your relationship between your shareholders and board and management? What kind of shareholders are you? Are you trying to get new people investing in your organization? Is there a change in capital shareholding structure? Are you increasing? Is the complexity of your firm's business being more complex? Are you facing new risks? Are your risk profiles changing? So these are the triggers that can make you consider, like, now, do we need to change our strategy? And so these are the steps you would take. You first assess your organization, what size, what nature, what complexity, so that you establish what governance structures are necessary for you. Then you define your stakeholders and the responsibilities, because you're going to have to assign clear responsibilities. Then you're going to develop policies and procedures as the governing body, be able to guide management. Then you establish your governing body, okay? Then implement regular monitoring and reporting systems to be able to get feedback. How are we doing with what we've put in place? Then you train and educate your staff to understand these governance requirements. Then, of course, you must continuously commit to improvement. So there are principles that will guide you if you're an unlisted company, and these are from the various codes that are out there. It will tell you what should you consider if you're an unlisted company. Okay, and if you're unlisted and you're looking forward to maybe going to the listing and putting your shares out there, then it will give you the principles that you consider. So at this level, when you're just an unlisted company, this applies to all unlisted companies. So you establish appropriate constitutional and governance framework, and this should be done by the shareholders, imagining you're the owners. Then you strive to establish an effective board. I think we've already said the kind of composition, the kind of experience. Then you decide what size is good for you. Okay, for public sector for companies that are listed, this is already designed by the regulations that are there. But for a startup, for somebody who does not yet have these proper governance structures, then it's for you to decide what works for you. Then you must make sure you have enough and regular board meetings so that you're able to deliberate. And this should be also provided with adequate information. Then you make sure that the remuneration levels are okay to attract the kind of governance people you need. Remember, the board is also responsible for risk oversight. So you want to be able to set that in place. Then have continuous dialogue between your stakeholders in the board. When new board members come, you must make sure you induct them and continue training them. Then you establish, if it is a family-run business, you want to establish governance mechanism that organize the relationship between family governance and corporate governance, which should be separated. Then for the larger organizations that are even considering going public, you need to now go towards the more established organizations. So you want to be very clear on division of responsibilities between management and the board. You want diversity in your board, because remember, as you go public, you will be exposed more to stringent requirements for reporting to the public or expectations of your stakeholders. Then there'll be also more public scrutiny. So you also want to establish appropriate committees, because now your business will be growing bigger. You want people to be dealing with your specific issues in specific committees. Then you would also want to periodically assess your board as a governing body. How are we performing? Okay. Then assess the company's position in respect to the stakeholders. So there are various challenges when you try to establish governance structures. And especially if you're a small firm or a startup organization that is trying to come up with governance structures, for one reason or the other, the challenges that you will come across, and which is in most of the MSME research and studies, is the complex ownership structures. Most organizations or MSME start as families, as sole proprietorships. So as you try to move into more transparency, more exposure, more accountability, that complex ownership structure can create a challenge. Then lack of transparency, because you're used to running things your way, and there's no need for regulation. There's no regulatory requirement for you to disclose. But as you desire to have proper governance structures, that transparency can be a challenge. Then resource constraints, of course, for you to have a board, you must be able to remunerate them. So there's a challenge of finance, and then expertise. You might not have it in your organization or in your circle, so you would need to look for it. And there's also cost resistance to change, because governance by its nature will require a cultural shift, where in a case you are used to doing things in a particular way, it will require governance, a culture shift that, from a more informal to a formal sector. So these are the challenges that you may come across when you're establishing governance structures, and especially for organizations that are moving from small startups, MSMEs, to a more established operational level. So for you to resolve such challenges, you would want to customize. So don't go and pick an OECD corporate governance guideline and apply it as it should. You want to customize it to your own structure. You want to do training and, to build capacity, so that as you bring these structures, then they're able to understand what is the outlook. It becomes part of them. Then you get external advisory support. Okay. So where you're struggling, you can get legal advice. You can get company secretary's advice. You can get internal audit advice. Then you also need to continuously communicate and engage so that people know the steps you're taking. So why do governance fail, Richard? We hear so many cases of organizations, because governance can be good or it can just be governance. But governance can fail. And some of the reasons are actually as depicted in my slide. But Richard, just want to take you a minute. What can you see in the image on the screen?
Why governance fails?
Yeah, the picture. The guy there selling hamburgers.
Yeah, I can see a cow, if that is a cow, and 100% pure beef.
So, Richard, would you buy beef from that cow that is telling you that it's selling 100% pure beef?
It will be a problematic decision. I might not.
Yeah, because why is the cow still there if it's selling beef? Right? Because you get beef from. So one of the biggest the things that lead to failure in governance is because you're a board member, but you are this organization, you're a cow and you're sitting in the board for an organization that sells beef. So you would be very conflicted because if they continue selling beef, then they will have to sell you as well. So that is why, as we think of the beginning from this discussion from the beginning, if your board is not effectively composed, or if the membership is not, sorry, I know it's time over. So if you're not composed properly, then we're not able to deliberate on our roles clearly. Then unclear roles and responsibilities. If it's not clear who is reporting to who, then you will have a challenge and your governance structure may be well established, but it will not work. Conflict of interest, missing ethical and risk culture, non-compliance, ineffective communication. We are not engaging our stakeholders, and then we don't have adequate resources. Okay. In effective board composition, most boards, you're not supposed to participate in the day-to-day running. So you're just supposed to put your nose in, you keep your fingers off, just smell, you don't participate in the cooking. So you want to make sure that the board that you put in place does not have particular interest in putting their hands in. So there should be clear guidance in how you get your board, okay? Then what about ethics? Ethics can also make your governance structures to fail. As you can see, the guy there that is being fired, that's Citibank case. He was a fraud. He was a specialist in that area, but he was actually fired for eating 2 lunches. The problem was not that, if you read the story online, the problem was not that he ate 2 lunches, but that he lied about it. Okay, he said he ate 2 lunches, but in essence, there were more than one person who were eating. What about risk culture? It starts by how we hire and HR professionals. How do we get people to come to work with us? Tone at the top, accountability. You can't sit at the board and do the things that you're not supposed to be doing and expect the organization to actually do it. Then we have competency, okay? Non-compliance to laws and regulations. If you're in the public sector, Mongozo is very clear. You can be surcharged by the Inspector General. We heard about the case of I think the bank that audit committee members were actually surcharged individually. So non-compliance can also make your governance structures fail. So you want to make sure you're keeping governance structure. So now that you have established governance structures, it may result in challenges as well, because now you're making it more formal. So it is resulting in significant change. Nobody likes change, so you want to manage that. It can lead to a distribution of power. You used to be the one in charge, but now you're saying you have a board. How do you deal with that? Then there's unnecessary bureaucratic decision. You used to go to the bank and withdraw the money as you feel like, but now a board comes and says we need delegated authority. You can't withdraw this without a permission. So it creates a bureaucratic burden that you want to consider. Then if you implement the governance structures or frameworks poorly, then it will also backfire on you. And then people actually can tell when you're doing it for window dressing. Like if you're setting them up because you're going to get donor funding, people can tell. So you want to establish real governance structures that works. So the best practice is to define and delegate authority. Make sure you have checks and balances, segregate duties. Make sure you're making your decisions professionally. Make sure there's accountability, transparency, define credible mechanism for managing conflict of interest, and align incentives to the expected behavior. Remember, you can do this prior, okay? So that as you run your organization, you're actually doing the thing that you should be doing. Richard. I am 8 minutes past the hour, but that brings me to the end of my presentation. I think we've lost a lot of time in between, but Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. We have enjoyed your presentation, and we hope our organizations are going to be solid. They're going to be prosperous by the tips and nuggets that you have given unto us. Let us appreciate Dorothy. And the first question is, are shareholders equal to donors in an NGO?
Yes, because they're the ones who have actually given you the funding. So yes, because they're the ones investing in the organization. So I would consider them shareholders.
Very good. The other question I could like to ask, when you look at, because you've been in the game for a long time, when you look at a situation whereby technical competencies are more appreciated than the soft competencies, what do you think should be the case?
I think there should be a balance between technical and soft competencies. I remember I once sat in a board where there was a balance of where you have, when there are more mature board members, they tend to bring the soft skills. But the young board members are more about technicalities, about knowledge, about let's do this fast. So there should be a good balance between the soft and the technical skills. That way you'll have a balanced board.
Thank you very much. Comment on governance and family-owned business, because some of the reasons why family businesses do not proceed very far is because of governance issue. What do you think is the major problem with family business? Sometimes a person could apply for a job and then ask, is it family owned? Then they'll take a back seat. No. What do you think is the problem there?
In my view, families can be very complicated. You had the phrase that you don't choose the people that you're born with. So when you start a business as a family, perhaps you start at the point where you're friends and you all agree, but as you grow up and the business grows and the different and diverse personalities show up, and now we are all competing and I want a share, the other person wants a share, the other person does not believe in investing, the other person believes, let's just each of us get a share now. So all those complexities, and that is one of the key challenges, especially for family businesses. The complexity is you're just brothers and sisters. You're not of the same school of thought in terms of investment or in terms of the direction that the business is going or in terms of what do I need. Some people want instant gratification. Some people are looking at the long term. And you can see even for most of the supermarkets that were family owned, you can see them, they don't last up to a point. In my view, it is the perspective, why are you going into business? So you can start as a family because you are bonded by blood, but money comes and it brings out different personalities that might not agree. Richard, that's my view.
Thank you very much. Nicholas is asking, how do you handle scenarios where the board of directors are also part of the daily running of the company, e.g. operational issues? How do you manage that and you're in the mix?
That's very difficult to handle because if the structure of the board allows for that, then you might not be able to question it. But where the structure of the board is very clear, especially in more established organizations, where it's clear that this, and for public sector, the ops has even given more clear guidelines on the role of the board and management. And to deal with it would be to sort of continuously push for the clear separation of roles so that, as a board member, I cannot make a decision or and then go ahead and implement it and expect accountability from the person that have delegated the role to. So for me, it would be a continuous push for the clear segregation of roles between the oversight and the people that actually do it. And in some cases, it's hard, but the push should be continuously toward that clear separation. And it should be set in things like the board charters, that define the roles, and I think that would help. But again, it has to be, sometimes it's by design, so that would be hard to deal with, but the position will be continuously to make sure you have the correct governance structures like the charter that would define and separate the roles.
Thank you. Purity Gikini is asking, how do I establish how long I need to have a board of advisors for my small business? How do I know it is time to have a board in the first place? What are the signs? What are the telltale signs that now I really need to have a board of advisors?
And if we just go back to the slide where we were talking about the triggers. So advisory is, I'm starting out, perhaps in the first 1-2 years, I'm starting out. I have this ambition, I have this desire, this passion. So usually we get people like mentors, like family, people who actually believe in that vision that we have. That would be an advisory role, and it's flexible. But once you started implementing your strategy, once you started running your business, and you can actually see it taking a new level in the life cycle, then the reason to move from an advisory to an established board is now you want people that, let me put it in quotes, that you're actually paying to move you from that level of growth to the next. So for me, the trigger or the indicator that you need to move to the next level is if what you have been trying to achieve for that past 2-3 years has actually been achieved as per your strategy. And so the existing advisory body might not, have the expertise or the capacity or the skills to move you to that level. So if you feel like you are growing, then that is the point at which you want to bring in another governance or another view from a perspective of industry expertise and the like.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. There is a question by John Mwansia. Of course, we are getting it right. John Mwansia is asking, how do you operate in an environment where the level of the company is corporate, but the final decision lies in the hands of the owner? So that's veil. How do you overcome that veil?
That one is a tough one. Because you said there's a board, but there's an owner.
Yes.
That feels to me like a shareholder who has very many shares in the organization. So the way to work with that for me is, if I was a member of the management, is to make sure, because you usually say you work for the boss. In that case, your boss is that shareholder. And if the board, if they can override the board, then I believe that's where you would focus on what is the expectation. And if it is not against any laws or regulations, then it should be done to make sure that that shareholders' value is created, but through the procedures and regulations and activities that have been set in the organization by the board. Remember, that person's fund, the board has been hired or put in place by that shareholder to make sure that they are getting value. So it will be to continuously try and build or create, emphasize the value that this organization is creating on behalf of that shareholder. And that is through proper, setting of targets, making sure objectives that are supposed to be met are met, and continuously, improving. But that would be a challenge for me, Richard.
Thank you, Dorothy. There is a question by Justin Namuli. How different can the board be for a social enterprise?
Social
how
enterprise.
Different can the board be? Social enterprise, yeah.
Richard, what is your understanding of a social enterprise? That would be like a CBO, a business.
Yes,
CBO.
those things. Yes, CBOs.
Okay, so remember, for a CBO, the objective is not profit, but the objective of a not-for-profit is not profit. It's delivery on almost like public sector goods, amenities, meeting some. So as the difference would be, you want people who have that philanthropy perspective of things. You want people who have experience in the social world, in community development and the like, as opposed to people who are cutthroat, what's the word? People who are, what's the word, Richard? If you're not a philanthropist, you're a capitalist, yes. So I would go for people who are more, softer and in pursuit of the greater good, as opposed to cutthroat profit. Thank you.
Yeah, there's another question. What is the role of a board in firing an MD, if any? Is there a role?
The board actually hires the MD, and if the MD has gone through the proper disciplinary process of the organization, then they will be fired with that process as well. The board is the authority that hires both senior management and the MD. So yes, they have a role, and however, it should go through the proper the policy. Remember, the board also sets the policies, which includes HR policies and how we decide on disciplinary cases. But we must make sure that we do it as per the law, so that we don't put ourselves in trouble.
Very good. Now, here is my question. How is an independent director appointed? Will this person make decisions skewed to the appointing authority? How are they chosen, the independent directors?
So, independent directors are people who, let me use a case of a public sector board. So public sector board would have a representation of the treasury, the ministry, and the like for parastatals, for example. An independent director, in my case, for example, me, would be someone from the private sector. So the appointment of that person is the strength that they're bringing an independent perspective. Actually, they are the people who, in many parastatals, they are the people who, by the guidelines, I think Mongozo, they're the people who should chair the various committees in these boards. And the reason is that they're expected to bring that independence to the board, the ability to think independently, because they don't belong to the ministry or they don't belong to directly the appointing authority. They're appointed based on their professional expertise. For example, me as an internal auditor or someone from the HR fraternity. So they are actually brought in place because they're expected to bring that pure mindedness of independence. And they're actually the fulcrum, because they are not ideally, what's the word? They're not ideally, although they are appointed by the appointing authority, they're not ideally from the ministry or from the treasury, for example. So they bring that perspective of the external world, of the private sector, where things are done differently from the public sector, for instance, Richard.
Thank you so much. You can prepare for your parting shot as I read the names of the sponsors of this conversation. Pathway Solutions, they specialize in learning management systems. If you are a member of Get It Right Atala Solutions, you get discounted rates. So if you want to advance in your professional standing, please check out Pathway Solutions. Then we have Labor Planet. They specialize in labor outsourcing. Then we have Nile Front Cottage. It's a beautiful, beautiful cottage where you can sleep and enjoy the views of the Nile. Then when we have El Semea, which is our own in Kenya. If you want to relax, if you have made money, you've been paid from the board and sitting allowance is good, you can go there and enjoy. Then we have K2HR in Rwanda. If you are consulting and you're looking for an organization to consult in Rwanda, please contact K2 Human Resource HR, that is. Then we have Steadfast, is a consulting firm in Uganda. I can remember Dennis very well. I don't know if he's around. Then we have SS Park. They specialize in safety and health. Then we have Vanessa Training Institute. They make all those beautiful good works and metals. So please, if you want some good training, consult Vanessa Training. Then we have Profiles International. They conduct emotional intelligence, the one that Dorothy has mentioned, and other soft skills. They are very good if you want certification. Then we have Caplamentito for cashew nuts. I love cashew nuts myself. That is why I've threatened Grace. If she doesn't bring cashew nuts, she should not come from the coast. Over to you with your parting shots, Dorothy.
So as I was listening to cashew nuts and nice places to stay, my parting shot is this. When we think of governance, people think of them as posh positions, like you get perks and good things and allowances. But in my experience, sitting in boards or chairing audit committee board committees, for me, it puts me in a place where I feel I'm standing in place of Wanjiku. So I must put my best show. I must display the right behavior. I must gatekeep. I must make sure that what is being done is actually done on behalf of the stakeholder. And in this case, it could be Wanjiku, it could be the investor. So governance and sitting in boards is not just a flamboyant thing. It's actually how we get to change how this country is run, how organizations are run. It's about us making sure we are leaving the best for the future generations. So as we think of sitting in these places or growing to these places, we should also walk with our heart in the right place. Because you can make or kill an organization when you sit in the board, when you chair a board, when you come with your mindset and policies and way of working. So let us set these governance structures in place and let us grow people to actually sit in these places that can change how we perceive what growth is or what economic development is, because then we are able to give back to society with the knowledge that has been entrusted in us. So put in place governance structures. Even as an individual, put in place a coach, a mentor. That's your own board to keep checking for you. How am I, pursuing my objectives, my goals, put in place a form of oversight over whatever you want to establish. And for us that are entrusted with these governance roles in organizations in the public sector, let us make sure we are bringing our best to the table so that we change and so that we continuously make our country better. Remember, our country is made up of the organizations, the MSMEs, the public sector, the parastatals. That is Kenya. And by sitting in those positions, let us make sure we are doing it right. And so if you are not equipped, if you want to learn more, if you want internal audit services, at Dot & Associates, we offer that. We build capacities. We can do for you internal audit outsourced. We can do assessments for you, tell you how your business is doing. And as internal auditors, we actually give the true version. So continuously, that is my parting shot. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Atara, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dorothy Chepkoech, for that wonderful, insightful, profound presentation that you have given to us, and we'll make sure that our organizations run on good fuel. I can see Nicholas is asking, Jackie Kibogo is asking if we can repeat the name of the cashew nut company. It's called Capu Lamentito. Jacinta, you can write. Is there a checklist of policies that a board should have? Yes, Michael, there is. Thank you so much for having created time for tonight's conversation. Of course, here we get it right every Tuesday from 8 to 9:30. And God bless you all. My name has been Richard Magoma, your moderator, and I say see you next week on Tuesday. God bless. Good night.
Good night.
Dorothy, you've done a good job. Thank you very much.